what's up? My name is Marco. I'm a former professional opera singer. I love talking about video game music and anime music from an emotional perspective after a decade on the stage. I've been watching Mob Psycho 100 recently, and I love it. I'm almost done with season 1 at the time of filming this. It's probably the weirdest anime I've seen, only in the sense that it's kind of bigger than life, larger than life. The excellent blend of adulthood and youth growing up and puberty. And actually, I was thinking the other day that maybe the psychic powers end up being actually a representation of puberty for a lot of these guys. A lot of this feels like just that internal and external angst that we feel as we grow up into adulthood. Mob is such an interesting character, and my favorite parts are when he uses his psychic powers. My most favorite parts are episode 3, I think it was episode 7, when they try to kidnap his brother. In any case, this is Mob Kanju no Bakuhatsu, Explosion of Mob's Emotions. Fantastic, simple track. I've not gotten to spend much time actually listening to it because it's always playing at pivotal moments and I'm so glued to what's happening visually. Let's dive in, shall we? So it's natural here to have essentially a build-up. I mean, that's what this is. Obviously, there's nothing crazy going on. We do get some interesting doom, dum, 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 dum under the, in the sort of bass. And then we get this as we start to build into that, as we explode out. And I'm really curious to see how Mob is able to take these emotions that he feels, these explosions of emotion, where he, loses consciousness almost, becomes unaware of what's happening. He kind of snaps out of it and steps into this psychic power. It's so interesting. When I first heard this, I was actually kind of blown away by it because it's such an evocative, scary, psychotic, like ba 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 da da ba da da da. Right, so it's interesting because it's actually not that many notes. There's this sort of like bubbling rage, right, that kind of kicks in with this sound. That's really, I think, so unique. I've not heard it in any other soundtrack. It's like, do not fuck with me. You hear that, and even if Mob talks about the sort of anger that kind of comes through, and usually it's anger, the emotion, the explosion of anger. I think this music is excellent because emotion, for a lot of us, the whole process of like bubbling over is a gradual build, either due to a lack of communication, due to an incessant sort of pattern where things continue to build and build and build, and we don't have proper channels to release them, which is, I'm assuming, based on season 1. Mob is working through that, and hopefully he begins to really coalesce with that, and just the natural process of like being young and not knowing what to do with emotions. Because I mean, anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, these are big emotions, and not knowing where to place them is a normal thing for us. In this particular sound, we obviously have this percussive build up. There's a drive in that, isn't there? It's just so evocative. Listen, listen, listen. It's an interesting sound, right? It almost feels like a kazoo. It wants to sound otherworldly. It wants to sound supernatural. There's a sound quality in this particular thematic writing that is unnerving. And a lot of Mob Psycho's music actually is like this. Most of the sounds that I've listened to, there's also the squeaking bed sound, beep up, beep up, beep up, beep up. Or there's the music that plays when Reigen's doing stuff. There's this dissonance that occurs where it's not fully normal. It's not fully centered. And so what we end up getting is this kind of distortion that's really evocative. I do think this is like the standout piece of the OST so far. Maybe there's others later on after season 1, but I'm so intrigued by this because it always happens when like the psychic powers really click in. Not to talk too much, but I'm very passionate about Mob Psycho. It's been a real delight to watch. Let's keep listening. And that's interesting, just the hits there. I'm pretty sure that that's also an increase. So we have that little interlude where nothing really happens, even though both versions are pretty high emotionally. The second one, it actually has more hits involved with the lower part, so it's actually more emphasis because it repeats itself. We're really dialing up the energy meter. It's a little harder hitting. And then I love it because here we click in with the electric guitar. And that's where the anger really comes in. The electric guitar is anger, it's action, right? This is usually when the action starts to kick in. The electric guitar is movement, not just that sort of stationary percussion that we're getting, which is fine and great, incredibly evocative. Percussion is always that way. Hits are hits. But when we kick in with the electric guitar, that's where we get more of that action anger. And interestingly enough, so it's structured in the sense that it doesn't change, but it also feels pretty improvisatory. So even though we know exactly it's like a 2-bar phrase, kind of just repeats itself twice, what's interesting is that each time, because of the way that we're moving our hands and doing the guitar stuff, there is this feeling in it of kind of just making it up as we go. You know, I'm looking this way, and there's a real power in that, I think. And then too, we have that kind of elevator climbing up. None of the things that I'm saying, by the way, are revolutionary or things that you haven't picked up on your own. That's not really the point of this. The point of this is to be like, isn't that freaking cool? Or, you know, likes and dislikes and like why I like it, why you like it, why I don't like it, so on and so forth. Like the point is not to create some sort of a revelation in how you know, it's not music theory, it's not analysis. What it is talking about the finer emotional details of maybe why things are composed the way they're composed. And I think that that's really important, but also just pointing things out because they sound cool. And don't you love too how the stakes now are massive? Ba ba da ba da ba da da da. We actually take the ba dee da dee da. We actually take that and we reduce it. We pull it back, and actually what we end up with is just a couple of pieces of movement. So it's pretty much the same notes, but without all the extra things that make the first half really spicy. But this back half is much more resolute because we remove some of the notes. We remove some of the subdivision, and what we're left with is just ba-dee-da-da-da-da. Much more impactful, even though it's simpler in a way. There's just a little bit more emphasis. And also, of course, the hits there are really cool. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da. And then in the end, of course, you hear that push to the ending there as we, you know, throw a guy through a building, and all of a sudden the kid is naked. The other's a psychic that we meet, forget his name, Tanaka-san, or I forget, but like, you know, suddenly there's a bunch of parts of the building up in the sky. It's just such a weird one. It's such a perfect show. I love how it's playful. It's kind of jokey, but it's also deeply personal. It really handles the dynamics of being a teenager and growing up super well. Mob is a very relatable character, kind of awkward. I certainly was that way in high school and in middle school as I started to figure out who the hell I was. Yeah, it's amazing stuff. If you like this, definitely feel free to check out the Patreon for full episodes. Feel free to join the Discord, the Meatball Kingdom. Everything's in the description below. Thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.